Open Stax Psychology Chapter 9 continued, Section 9.2 Lifespan Theories. There are many theories regarding how babies and children grow and develop into healthy adults. We explore several of these theories in this section. Psychosexual theory of development. Sigmund Freud believed that personality develops during each childhood. For Freud, childhood experiences shape our personalities and behaviors as adults. Freud viewed development as discontinuous. He believed that each of us must pass through a series of stages during childhood, and that if we lack proper nurturance and parenting during the stage, we may become stuck or fixated in that stage. Freud's stages are called the stages of psychosexual development. According to Freud, children's pleasure-seeking urges are focused on a different area of the body called the erogenous zone at each of the 5 stages of development: oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. While most of Freud's ideas have not found support in modern research, we cannot discount the contributions that Freud has made to the field of psychology. Psychologists today dispute Freud's psychosexual stages as a legitimate explanation of how one's personality develops, but what we can take away from Freud's theory is that personality is shaped in some parts by experiences we have in childhood. These stages are discussed in detail in the chapter on personality. Psychosocial theory of development. Erik Erikson, another stage theorist, took Freud's theory and modified it as psychosocial theory. Erikson's psychosocial development theory emphasizes the social nature of our development rather than its sexual nature. While Freud believed that personality is shaped only in childhood, Erikson proposed that personality development takes place all through the lifespan. Erikson suggested that how we interact with others is what affects our sense of self, or what he called the ego identity. Erikson proposed that we are motivated by a need to achieve competence in certain areas of our lives. According to psychosocial theory, we experience 8 stages of development over our lifespan, from infancy through late adulthood. At each stage, there is a conflict or task that we need to resolve. Successful completion of each developmental task results in a sense of competence and a healthy personality. Failure to master these tasks leads to feelings of inadequacy. According to Erikson, trust is the basis of our developments during infancy. Therefore, the primary task of this stage is trust versus mistrust. Infants are dependent upon their caregivers, so caregivers who are responsive and sensitive to their infants' needs help their baby to develop a sense of trust. Their baby will see the world as a safe, predictable place. Unresponsive caregivers who do not meet their baby's needs can engender feelings of anxiety, fear, and mistrust. Their baby must see the world as unpredictable. As toddlers begin to explore the world, they learn that they can control their actions and act on the environment to get results. They begin to show clear preferences for certain elements of the environment, such as food, toys, and clothing. Toddlers' main tasks to resolve the issue of autonomy versus shame and doubt by working to establish independence. This is the me-do-it stage. For example, we might observe a budding sense of autonomy in a 2-year-old child who wants to choose her clothes and dress herself. Although her outfits might not be appropriate for the situation, her input in such decision has an effect on her sense of independence. If denied the opportunity to act on her environment, she may begin to doubt her ability, which could lead to low self-esteem and feelings of shame. Once children reach preschool age, they are capable of initiating activities and asserting control over the world through social interactions and play. According to Erickson, preschool children must resolve the task of initiative versus guilt. By learning to plan and achieve goals while interacting with others, preschool children can master this task. Those who do will develop self-confidence and feel a sense of purpose. Those who are unsuccessful at this stage, with their initiative misfiring or stifled, may develop a feelings of guilt. How might over-controlling parents stifle a child's initiative? During the elementary school stages, children face the task of industry versus inferiority. Children begin to compare themselves to their peers and see how they measure up. They either develop a sense of pride and accomplishment in their schoolwork, sports, social activities, and family life, or they feel inferior and inadequate when they don't measure up. What are some things parents and teachers can do to help children develop a sense of competence and a belief in themselves and their abilities? In adolescence, children face the task of identifying versus role confusion. According to Erickson, an adolescent's main task is developing a sense of self. Adolescents struggle with questions such as who am I and what do I want to do with my life? Along the way, most adolescents try on many different selves to see which one fits. Adolescents who are successful at this stage have a strong sense of identity and are able to remain true to their belief and values in the face of problems and other people's perspectives. What happens to apathetic adolescents who do not make a conscious search for identity, or those who are pressured to conform to their parents' ideas for the future? These teens will have a weak sense of self and experience role confusion. They are unsure of their identity and confused about the future. People in early adulthood are concerned with intimacy versus isolation. After we have developed a sense of self in adolescence, we are ready to share our life with others. Erickson said that we must have a strong sense of self before developing intimate relationships with others. Adults who do not develop a positive self-concept in adolescence may experience feelings of loneliness and emotional isolation. When people reach their 40s, they enter the time known as middle adulthood, which extends to the mid-60s. The social task of middle adulthood is generativity versus stagnation. Generativity involves finding your life's work and contributing to the development of others through activities such as volunteering, mentoring, and raising children. And those who do not master this task may experience stagnation, having little connection with others and little interaction in productivity and self-improvement. From the mid-60s to the end of life, we are in the period of development known as late adulthood. Erickson's task in this stage is called integrity versus despair. He said that people in late adulthood reflect on their lives and feel either a sense of satisfaction or a sense of failure. People who feel proud of their accomplishments feel a sense of integrity, and they look back on their lives with few regrets. However, people who are not successful at this stage may feel as if their life has been wasted. They focus on what would have, should have, and could have been. They face the end of their lives with feelings of bitterness, depression, and despair. Cognitive theory of development. Jean Piaget is another stage theorist who studied childhood development. Instead of approaching development from a psychoanalytical or psychosocial perspective, Baggett focused on children's cognitive growth. He believed that thinking is a central aspect of development and that children are naturally inquisitive. However, he said that children do not think and reason like adults. His theory of cognitive development holds that our cognitive abilities develop through specific stages, in which exemplifies the discontinuity approach to development. As we progress to a new stage, there is a distinct shift in how we think and reason. Baggett said that children develop schemata to help them understand the world. Schemata are concepts that are used to help us categorize and interpret information. By the time children have reached adulthood, they have reached schemata from almost everything. When children learn new information, they adjust their schemata through two processes: assimilation and accommodation. First, they assimilate new information or experiences in terms of their current schemata. Assimilation is when they take in information that is comparable to what they already know. Accommodation describes when they change their schemata based on this information. This process continues as children interact with their environments. For example, 2-year-old Blake learned the schema for dogs because his family has a Labrador retriever. When Blake sees other dogs in his pictures, he says, "Look, mommy, dog." Thus, he has assimilated them into his schema for dogs. One day, Blake sees a sheep for the first time and says, "Look, mommy, dog." Having a basic schema that a dog is an animal, creatures with fur are dogs. When Blake's mom tells him that the animal he sees is a sheep, not a dog, Blake must accommodate his schema for dog to include more information based on his new experience. Blake's schema for dog was too broad since not all furry, four-legged creatures are dogs. He now modifies his schema for dogs and forms a new one for sheeps. Like Freud and Erikson, Baggett thought development unfolds in a series of stages, approximately associated with age ranges. He proposed a theory of cognitive development that unfolds in 4 stages: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. The first stage in the sensory motor stages, which lasts from birth to about 2 years old. During this stage, children learn about the world through their senses and motor behaviors. Young children put objects in their mouth to see if the items are edible, and once they can grasp objects, they make shake or bang them to see if they can make sounds. Between 5 and 8 months old, the child's object performance, which is the understanding that even if something is out of sight, it still exists. According to Baggett, young infants do not remember an object after it has been removed from sight. Baggett studied infants' reactions when a toy was first shown to an infant and then hidden under a blanket. Infants who had already developed object performance would reach for the hidden toy, indicating that they know it still existed, whereas infants who did not develop object performance would appear confused. In Baggett's view, the world around the same children develop object performance, they also begin to exhibit stranger anxiety, which is a fear of unfamiliar people. Babies may demonstrate this by crying and turning away from a stranger, by clinging to a caregiver, or by attempting to reach their arms towards familiar faces, such as parents. Stranger anxiety results when a child is unable to assimilate the stranger into an existing schema. Therefore, she can't predict what her experience with the stranger will be like, which results in a fear response. Baggett's second stage is the prepositional stage, which is from approximately 2 to 7 years old. In this stage, children can use symbols to represent words, images, and ideas, which is why children in this stage engage in pretend play. A child's arm might become airplane wings as he zooms around the room, or a child with a stick might become a brave knight with a sword. Children also begin to use language in their pre-operational stage, but they cannot understand adult logic or mental manipulation, or mentally manipulate information. Children's logic is based on their own personal knowledge of the world so far, rather than on conventional knowledge. For example, Dad gave a slice of pizza to 10-year-old Kiko and another slice to her 3-year-old brother Kenny. Kenny's pizza slice was cut into 5 pieces, so Kenny told his sister that he got more pizza than she did. Children in this stage cannot perform mental operations because they have not developed an understanding of conservation, which is the idea that even if you change the appearance of something, it is still equal to size as long as nothing has been removed or added. During this stage, we also expect the children to display egocentrism, which means that the child is not able to take the perspective of others. A child at this stage thinks that everyone sees, thinks, and feels just as they do. Let's look at Kenny and Kiko again. Kiko's birthday is coming up, so their mom takes Kenny to the toy store to choose a present for his sister. He selects an Iron Man action figure for her, thinking that if he likes a toy, his sister will too. An egocentric child is not able to infer the perspective of other people and instead attributes to his own perspective. Piaget's third stage is the concrete operational stage, which occurs from about 7 to 11 years old. In this stage, children can think logically about real events. They have a firm grasp on the use of numbers and start to employ memory strategies. They can perform mathematical operations and understand information transformations, such as addition is the opposite of subtraction and multiplication is the opposite of division. In this stage, children also master the concept of conservation. Even if something changes shape, its mass, volume, and numbers stay the same. For example, if you pour water from a tall, thin glass to a short, fat glass, you still have the same amount of water. Remember Kiko and Kenny and the pizza? How did Kiko know that Kenny was wrong when he said that he had more pizza? Children in the concrete operational stage also understand the principle of reversibility, which means that objects can be changed and then returned back to their original form or condition. Take, for example, water that you poured into the short, fat glass. You can pour water from the fat glass back to the thin glass and still have the same amount. The fourth and last stage in Piaget's theory is the formal operation stage, which is from ages 11 to adulthood. Whereas children in the concrete operational stage are able to think logically only about concrete events, children in the formal operational stage can also deal with abstract ideas and hypothetical situations. Children in this stage can use abstract thinking to problem solve, look at alternative solutions, and test these solutions. In adolescence, a renewed egocentrism occurs. For example, a 15-year-old with a very small pimple on her face might think it's a huge and incredibly visible, under the mistaken impression that others must share her perception. Beyond formal operational thought. As with other major contributors of theories and development, several of Piaget's ideas have come under criticism based on the results of further research. For example, several contemporary studies support a model of development that is more continuous than Piaget's discrete stages. Many others suggest that children reach cognitive milestones earlier than Piaget describes. According to Paget, the highest level of cognitive development is formal operational thought, which develops between 11 and 20 years old. However, many developmental psychologists disagree with Paget, suggesting a fifth stage of cognitive development known as the post-formal stage. In post-formal thinking, decisions are based on situations and circumstances, and logic is integrated with emotion as adults develop principles that depend on contexts. One way that we can see the difference between an adult is past formal thought and an adolescent in formal operation is in terms of how they handle emotional charged issues. It seems that once we reach adulthood, our problem-solving abilities change. As we attempt to solve problems, we tend to think more deeply about many areas of our lives, such as relationship, work, and politics. Because of this, post-formal thinkers are able to draw on past experiences to help them solve new problems. Problem-solving strategies used post-formal thought vary depending on the situation. What does this mean? Adults can recognize, for example, that what seems to be an ideal solution to a problem at work involving a disagreement with a colleague may not be the best solution to a disagreement with a significant other. Theory of moral development. A major task beginning in childhood and continuing into adolescence is discerning right from wrong. Psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg extended upon the foundation that Paget built regarding cognitive development. Kohlberg believed that moral development, like cognitive development, follows a series of stages. To develop this, Kohlberg posed moral dilemmas to people of all ages, and then he analyzed their answer to find evidence of their particular stage of moral development. Before reading about the stages, take a minute to consider how you would answer one of Kohlberg's best-known moral dilemmas, commonly known as Heinz dilemma. In Europe, a woman was near death from a special kind of cancer. There was one drug that the doctor thought might save her. It was a form of radium that a druggist in the same town had recently discovered. The drug was expensive to make, but the druggist was charging 10 times what the drug cost him to make. He paid $200 for the radium and charged $2,000 for a small dose of the drug. The sick woman's husband, Haynes, went to everyone he knew to borrow the money, but he could only get together about $1,000, which is half of what it cost. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell it cheaper or let him pay later, but the druggist said no. I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it. So Haynes got desperate and broke into the man's store to steal the drug for his wife. Should the husband have done that? How would you answer this dilemma? Kohlberg was not interested in whether you answer yes or no to the dilemma. Instead, he was interested in the reasoning behind your answer. After presenting people with this and various other moral dilemmas, Kohlberg reviewed people's responses and placed them in different stages of moral reasoning. According to Kohlberg, an individual's progress from the capacity for pre-conventional morality to the capacity for conventional morality and towards attaining post-conventional morality, which only a few fully achieve. Kohlberg placed in the highest stage responses that reflected the reasoning that Haynes should steal the drug because his wife's life is more important than the pharmacist making money. The value of a human life overrides the pharmacist's greed. It is important to realize that even those people who have the most sophisticated post-conventional reason for some choice may make others' choices for the simplest of pre-conventional reasons. Many psychologists agree with Kohlberg's theory of moral developments, but point out that moral reasoning is very different from moral behavior. Sometimes what we say we would do in a situation is not what we actually do in the situation. In other words, we might talk the talk, but not walk the walk. How does this theory apply to males and females? Kohlberg felt that more males than females move past stages 4 in their moral development. He went on to note that women seem to be deficient in their moral reasoning abilities. These ideas were not well received by Carol Galligan, a research assistant of Kohlberg, who consequently developed her own ideas of moral development. In her groundbreaking book, In a Different Voice, Psychological Theory and Women's Development, Gilligan criticized her former mentor's theory because it was based only on upper-class white men and boys. She argued that women are not deficient in their moral reasoning. She proposed that males and females reason differently. Girls and women focus more on staying connected and the importance of interpersonal relationships. Therefore, in the Haynes dilemma, many girls and women respond that Haynes should not steal the medicine. This reason is that if he steals the medicine, is arrested, and is put in jail, then he and his wife will be separated, and she could die while he's still in prison. Summary. There are many theories regarding how babies and children grow and develop into happy, healthy adults. Sigmund Freud suggested that we pass through a series of psychosexual stages in which our energy is focused on certain erogenous zones of the body. Erik Erikson modified Freud's idea and suggested a theory of psychosocial development. Erikson said that our social interactions and successful completion of social tasks shape our sense of self. Jane Piaget proposed a theory of cognitive developments that explained how children think and reason as they move through various stages. Finally, Lawrence Kohlberg turned his attention to moral development. He said that we pass through 3 levels of moral thinking that build on our cognitive development.